Hi, welcome to our podcast. We are Karma from the Anthropology of Religion class under Professor Ostabo. And this semester, we've been researching how religion impacts the community at the University of Florida. My name is Marley.
My name's Aiden.
My name is Chloe.
My name is Ryuji.
My name is Aria.
My name is Alex.
And as a group, I think we were all kind of familiar with some religiously associated businesses on UF's campus. So we decided to research the question, does religious association change how a food service business is run and experienced by the UF community? And we focused on a few specific businesses. One of them was Krishna Lunch, which is served at the Plaza of the Americas, which is the main campus green at UF, as well as at a house very close to campus. Krishna Lunch is associated with the Hare Krishna movement and religion. They basically just sell lunch Monday through Friday.
Krishna Lunch has been a staple of UF for, I believe, just about 50 years now. They were started in the 70s as a free way to provide students with cruelty-free vegetarian/vegan lunch. And since then, it has just become one of the best and biggest parts of UF campus. And most all students look forward to seeing the crowd, looking at the line, or enjoying the food.
So Pascal's is a subsection of the Christian Study Center in Gainesville, Florida. It is an independent, standing building, a coffee house. Their goal was to create a space that would invite Christian students and other members of the Christian community to come to this shared space where they can discuss their faith while enjoying quality coffee. And it has grown to be a pretty commonly known study location for many students of all religious backgrounds, a place to grab a quick coffee on your way to class or just kind of hang out with people.
Vital Power is a restaurant from the UF campus which serves the real halal, established summer 2022. Managers from New York said people in New York Street sell the fake halal foods even though they have the sign of halal food. And they only use the ingredients which are processed based on the Muslims' religious practice, such as cutting meat by hand without machines.
So now that we've introduced our four businesses, the Krishna Lunch associated with the Krishnas, Pascal associated with Christianity, and the halal food of Vital Power, we wanted to kind of go into, as researchers, what biases that we come into from our own religious backgrounds and how college has changed our views. So this is Marley again. I was raised Jewish, most of my life Reformed Judaism. I would say I had some negative biases toward Christianity just from the way Christians have treated me. Overall, I believe in everyone is entitled to their own belief, to be agnostic today. And personally, attending UF and the college campus really hasn't changed that view for me.
My name's Aiden again, and I'm a Reformed Orthodox Presbyterian. However, you could definitely use that very loosely. I grew up in the Catholic Church, but split away and became agnostic for about 10 years of my life before entering college and finding the Presbyterian Church and slowly getting into that as more of an interest, which eventually evolved into an actual practice and belief system for me.
So I'm Chloe. I grew up Lutheran in the Lutheran Church. Now, I would say that growing up, we ended up switching churches when my first pastor left, and we didn't really like the new pastor, so we started exploring new churches. At some of the churches that we did go to, we really didn't agree with what the sermons were saying. We felt like the way that they interpreted the Bible was different from how we perceived it, so we never really ended up finding a stable church to continue going to. So I practice religion more individually, and I've gotten a little bit into spirituality because I like the values of it a bit more, and I like the idea of having religion being a personal experience versus being kind of pushed on by others or enforced.
My name is Ryuji and I'm Japanese, and I've never been involved with religion in my entire life. Japanese people are kind of weird. We sometimes have wedding at the church and have a funeral at the temple. We really do not care about religion. I rely on the God when I want to.
It's Ari again. I was raised Christian. I will go non-denominational. My mother was raised Pentecostal, but she didn't really follow that. We were kind of loosely Christian growing up. Midway through high school is when I decided that I was agnostic, and that's what I still am today. No reason. I didn't have a falling out with religion of any sort. I just didn't, it wasn't for me not to kind of guide my life and my decisions, because I can't say for definite whether or not religion does have some like factual basis to it. I go with agnostic, and I kind of just hope that people do good, are kind, and like share that around. And I wouldn't say that college has had an impact on my religious stance in any way.
Yeah, I'm Alex again. I grew up like loosely Catholic. I went to Catholic school, but I wasn't really into it. My family didn't really go to church except on like on Easter and Christmas. And then around my junior year of high school, I was confirmed, and then after that, I don't know, I just felt way more spiritual and way more connected to the Catholic Church, so I started going to church every Sunday by myself or with my family if they ever wanted to go, and that's kind of something that's continued even into college. And around that same time, I was reading the Quran as well. I've read the Tao Te Ching. I've went to mosque to break fast for Ramadan. I've been to Orthodox Christian churches, and just experiencing different religious backgrounds to see what can be gained from all aspects. But right now I'm still a currently practicing Catholic.
One reason that we wanted to go into our views and even how the UF community has impacted those is because we did notice that the college environment did impact students' religious views and sense of religious belonging. Many students that we spoke to as we researched claimed that their view of religion did change when they came to the University of Florida, either because the large university atmosphere created an opportunity for students to come into contact with many new ideas, beliefs, or knowledge systems, or just through their interactions with peers or through their classes, or like any other variety of factors.
One thing that I noticed in my interviews is a lot of students who were previously religious came to college. Even if they had practiced religion with their family, they kind of have this new individual lifestyle, so they choose if they want to practice or not. I think the college campus influences students to learn and kind of soak up what's around them.
Yeah, for sure. Living on your own for the first time and being able to interact with new ideas and different perspectives definitely allows you to kind of find what you really actually, agree with and tackle different challenges from your typical beliefs. And so you can find different ways and different people that are interacting with religion. So it definitely can make you question a lot of what you believed previously.
I think one of the biggest themes from all of our interviews that we did notice was a preference in either experiencing religion as an individual experience or like a more social experience through one of those larger religious associations.
One influence from one of my interviewees that kind of stuck out to me, she grew up in a Catholic school and she grew up Catholic her whole life. She's also someone who hides her religion now from her friends. So being Christian for her has always been like a sacred piece of her identity, but hearing people's biases and like ugly experiences with the religion has influenced her to kind of silence her religion and make it more individual, even if she did want to have it in a group setting. I think it's important to understand that people experience religion in different ways through their life because there's all different people, preaching the religion, different ways to interpret it. One theme that I did see is if someone was religious, they were hesitant to identify in a group with their religion because they're uncomfortable with how others enforce the rules and values that they believe in.
To kind of like move with that idea of people and religion being an individual or a group experience for them, we also saw a common theme that people talked about was the openness versus closedness of the physical space and kind of their level of comfort supporting the businesses depending on the religion and whether or not it was open and closed. Two of my interviewees, they feel more comfortable going to a place like Krishna Plaza as opposed to Pascal's or Concord or any one of those places, just because it being in an outside space where they don't feel that they are entering that religious community's like territory. They don't feel as much that they have to conform to like the beliefs of the religion when they go, which was something that I found very interesting because I never considered how the physical space could affect people's thoughts. Along with the open and closed spaces, they felt that they were more biased negatively towards Christianity and Christian spaces. And I think that that goes back to just the like media portrayal of Christianity.
I found it personally very interesting that even Christian students did not seem like completely comfortable supporting these Christian associated businesses. And I think like the reason that we got down to why do you not feel comfortable supporting an association with your own religion was just that, because as we know, there's so many different sects of Christianity, so many different interpretations, and most students did not feel comfortable enough that they knew which interpretation they were supporting, where their money was going, and just generally what aspects of Christianity that they were specifically supporting in the United States, in the UF community, but also just like in our greater culture. Like we do see a lot of extremism and polarity of Christianity. So I think it would like kind of make sense like why we're seeing a lot more students have Christianity as an individualistic belief system rather than feeling more comfortable in that group setting. I think we also had an interesting finding with the Krishna organization that most students actually did not have a complete understanding of the values of the Krishna belief or religion, but still felt comfortable supporting the business.
One difference that I did notice between my interviews with supporting the businesses money-wise, people tended to support Krishna more or feel more comfortable supporting Krishna because they felt that the meal they were getting was very fulfilling and healthy, and a lot of times people will buy tickets so it's cheaper, and they feel that they enjoy Krishna and they want it to stay around, so supporting it is just allowing them to continue what they're doing on campus since it is pretty cheap for what you're getting. And one difference between Krishna and Pascal's is a closed space based in religion, which is similar to Krishna, but for Krishna, serving food is part of the religion. It's more an act that they participate in to perform and practice their religion, while Pascal's is essentially running a business, raising money based on a religion.
And I'll say from my interview with the Krishna, from what I understand, most of their profit gained from serving the food just goes back into supporting the food services continuation, just making sure they can afford to buy the products to make the food.
One other point that I did want to make about Krishna, talking about open and closed spaces, I interviewed two roommates who go to Krishna very often. Neither of them are religious, but they are very curious to religion, so they both visited the Krishna house. Krishna lunch is on campus in an open space. You're free to come and go as you please. Two of my interviewees actually, neither of them grew up religious, but they're very curious to learn about religions and kind of form their own values and morals based on what they agree with. And they support Krishna often, and they wanted to get to know it a little bit more, so they went to one of their Taco Tuesdays, which is inside the house. So that turns it into a closed space. But when they went, they felt that it was really welcoming, holding a lot of what they thought Krishna stood for, but they also felt just like an overwhelming welcomeness, which I feel you don't always feel when you go into somewhere like Pascal's. I think when they went, they talked about everyone being really present with whoever came in and kind of accommodating them into the space instead of saying, here's a space for you to come.
I actually had I had 2 interviewees that also went to an event at the Krishna House out of curiosity as well, and they shared very similar experiences as Chloe's interviewees. I asked them, would they have the same willingness to go to an event if it was held within a Christian space, and they said no. And I think that goes once again back to how Christianity has become so polarized. But something that stuck out to me from one of my interviewees was she said that people have very much exoticized Krishna just because they do not understand its values. They've put it down to just vegetarianism and just being kind. It's not the full story or the full picture, but many people don't know that. So because they have reframed Krishna and what Krishna's values as a religion are in their minds, they feel okay supporting that business, whether it is open or closed, as opposed to Christian or other religious businesses.
To support what Arya said, I would just note that a lot of people thought Krishna beliefs were kind of about vegetarianism and general humanitarian goodness, and beyond that they kind of had a knowledge gap in that area. I think another thing we noticed with Bite of Power is it is a much newer business compared to the others, and a lot of people that I interviewed at least were not aware that it was even religiously associated at all.
No, I had that same thing. My people went to Bite of Power, and this was at the start of Ramadan, which they would have expected to see some kind of symbolism for, and they saw nothing. If I had not told them that it was a religious business, they would not have been aware, which I think is also interesting on, even within a closed space, kind of how religion comes through and the symbols and the artifacts that are there.
One thing I want to touch on is similar to what Arya said. It's a lot about how there's the Eurocentric viewpoint of most religions that aren't Christian, as many people, if you told them there's a bigger difference between someone who's a Shivite and a Hare Krishna, or a Vishnavite, and said that they're much different than something as a Christian, if you said a Southern Baptist versus a Presbyterian, you'd think that there's such a gigantic gap, but in reality it's so vastly different, and it's entirely different gods being worshipped. However, it's interesting just to see that point and have so many people, like Arya had said, just assume their values and everything come down to something as simple as vegetarianism, and completely exclude the fact that there's thousands of years worth of culture, knowledge, and just texts that go behind these religions that diversify everything.
I think it's worth noting the presence of Christianity at say Pascal's is maybe even a presence that is just a lot greater and more transparent than some of these other businesses, which I believe may have led to some of these feelings of maybe unease about these spaces, especially when paired with people who might not necessarily have the same familiarity with these other religions.
We'd like to go into why people tend to go to these spaces. One of the 2 big things that we found were convenience and socialization. And I think the convenience plays a massive role, especially when considering something such as Krishna Lunch, as half the student population is on campus most of the days, and so I think a lot of people we saw were drawn to it. They said that the convenience of getting healthy for the price, very generous portions of food, kept them as a customer regardless of any religious affiliation.
Yeah, exactly. And rain or shine, they'll be there. If it's raining out, they'll just move under, the awning. The socialization aspect is also really important, because Plaza of the Americas is where, a lot of people go just to hang out on a hammock, or to, throw a football or play spike ball or do whatever. Almost all the interviewees I talked to said that they never went to Krishna by themselves, and they were always going with somebody or meeting up with somebody while they were there. And it was really a very social thing to go get Krishna. it was less so a religious experience for a lot of these people, and it was more just the convenience and the social aspect.
One thing that we also noted was that for a lot of people, the quality of the product actually was not that important. As we said, like, I think most people, there are people who go to Krishna purely for the vegetarian food and because they like the quality, but I think there's a higher emphasis or greater emphasis on the convenience aspect. And I know one of my interviewees said that she would get coffee at Concord or Pascal's because of convenience, even though she really didn't like either of the coffee quality that much. It was just on her way to campus.
No, I had the same. One of mine didn't even really feel comfortable in those spaces, but it was right there. She was a freshman living in a dorm with like not really good transportation options available, and like she still went just because it was there.
Yeah, exactly. One of my friends, he grew up in an Indian household, and he went to Krishna, and because he was invited, and he said he had the food and he hated it. But then he also went back again just because he was invited again. So he didn't really care for it, but he still went because he was invited.
Socialization and convenience were the driving factors, and I want to make a specific note that for most people, religion was not a main driving factor, even though these were religiously associated businesses or spaces. Another thing I want to address is like our biases, as none of us are particularly religious or associated with a religious group, organization, or club on campus, which may have limited who we spoke to in our inquiries, and also because we noted that like people weren't going there with religion as their driving factor. However, I would like to note that I went to Pascal's on 2 separate occasions and saw 2 of the most religious people in my like personal group of acquaintances there at those different occasions. And maybe like there may be a sect that we're missing that might be going there with religion as one of their main driving factors, but we just might not have access to that group as much.
One interesting thing that I could add in there is I actually got the chance to speak with a pastor briefly on their thoughts of just the religious affiliated businesses. And they said that they had never put thought or research into Krishna Lunch or anything, but hearing Pascal's was a Christian establishment, just out of curiosity and more so to support a business that they felt inclined to out of their own religion, they ended up going, which I found very interesting, that the only driving factor for them was actually the religious value and affiliation.
I think I'd like to talk a little bit about like all the symbolism at Pascal's compared to the other spaces, whereas in the Krishna space you can see like Krishna is creating and practicing ritualistic music and sometimes like walking up or down with pamphlets, but it's like confined to a relatively small area of the entire plaza. However, in Pascal's, I would say it's very concentrated with religious paraphernalia. For example, there were bulletin boards with information on different Easter and Lent services around that season, and pretty much everything on 2 bulletin boards in the upstairs of Pascal's had to deal with religious practice or religious events going on other than like a hiring notice. As well as that, their internet password also was a Bible verse. And as I said, I saw more religious people there and even noted like stickers on computers that were tied to religious camps or just religious ideals. There are definitely a lot more factors of clear religious presence at Pascal's, I would say, in comparison to pretty much any of the other religious establishments that we looked at.
No, and just a quick note that also goes with that. I went as well to Pascal's just to kind of observe the people that were there, see if perhaps there was a different population that we weren't accessing for our interviews. And as part of the religious symbolism, they had like a library in their upper level that contains religious texts. And something that I found interesting is that not all of the texts were based in Christianity, while most of the ones that they would push would be kind of Christian based, or so you would assume. they did have others that were talking about world religions or the Quran or like the ethics of religion, which I found interesting that even if it wasn't just Christianity that they were discussing, they still, all of their texts were related to religion in some way, shape, or form, which I think contributes to the overall atmosphere that the space is creating in order to attract like a certain type of person.
And I think that creates like an interesting question. Was that a strategic business decision or more based on just trying to be inclusive?
I wonder if the goal is to segue into conversion.
This like connects well to our next topic too, about the employee or manager experience in their business and like their opinions on religion's impact on their practice.
For the Vital Power, I interviewed to the restaurant manager, Omer and Iris. They believe animals have emotion and they do not feel good cutting by machine. It is part of religion and their unwavering will to follow the Muslim religion practice. As they promote and spread their presence of themselves, people who want the halal food can be displaced without worry. And their company's mission is to make sure everyone understands what the real halal is.
And I interviewed a Krishna employee as well. I was told that all the Krishna adherents that live in the house participate in the food service, and basically for them, food service of pure food that's blessed with the Krishna mantra that is created with an aspect of an emphasis on not harming the environment is how they achieve purity, and their goal is not to have profit. Just the food service itself of pure food and giving that to the community is actually a tenet of their beliefs. The emphasis on it being a business was more like of a byproduct of just adhering to their religious beliefs. When speaking to her, I asked if she thought that everyone in the community knows the values or goals of Krishna, and she said that she hoped that it made a positive impact in their lives even if they were unaware of the Krishna mission. We see with Bite of Power and Krishna is the emphasis on the like purity of food being like a core tenet of a religiously associated food service.
I had the opportunity to interview a Pascal's barista, and something that Marley said that was interesting that I found similar was the person that I interviewed also was hoping that like even if people didn't understand like how religion was integrated within their business, they wanted people to feel good and feel welcome. Like the religion wasn't the main aspect, which I found very interesting just because the barista that I interviewed was very serious about her religion. She said that she chose to work at Pascal's because she knew it was a Christian coffee house and she wanted to find an environment where she could become more serious and get more accountability with practicing her faith. A fun thing that I found was that on their application to work there, they ask about your relationship with Christianity and how like willing you would be to have conversations around theology and Christianity and all that, like a bridge point between her and the customer to kind of create a friendship. That was a big thing she also wanted.
I think that raises an interesting point, kind of looking at religious association with businesses being a practice versus a promotion, because when we looked at Krishna, it seemed that, well, they are practicing their religion through the food service, and at Pascal's, it seems more as a promotion, but based on the interview that you just discussed, it seems that this negative view on Christianity is making people feel that closed-in Christian spaces are less comfortable than an open space like Krishna. Because when people go to Krishna, it's almost the same thing. If you hint at your religion to Krishna or you hint at being curious, then they'll start a discussion. But I think the only difference between that and Pascal's would be starting it to see if there's a bridge versus having the customer start it.
A commonality that we're seeing too is kind of like a contrast between people of all faiths being customers of these different businesses. However, the employees and management themselves seems to be like very rooted in the business themselves. Like it's it does, I think we see that it does trickle down, like, not only to the founding of the business, but also in who they're hiring, or at least who they're attracting in the hiring process.
And one interesting thing that I noticed when walking into both Krishna Lunch and Pascal's and even Bite of Power is how the employees show off their own form of symbolism. As a lot of the women in Krishna have the bindi, which is the mark commonly placed on their forehead. And if you walk into Bite of Power, there's usually headpieces that you can find people wearing for religious purposes. But when walking into Pascal's, you can find a cross hanging from someone's neck.
I saw a lot more of that symbolism with the language that the barista used as opposed to what I've heard. While you may not see it as physically as with Bite of Power or with Krishna.
The outward expression of Christianity at Pascal's is in the space.
And now that we have had that wonderful conversation about all of this, we just want to wrap it up into kind of what our main points were. A big one that we found was religion was actually not the driving factor for whether or not people went to these businesses, as some may have believed before, but religion does impact the business model and how the business is run and portrayed. And so just to wrap up, convenience and socialization were the main reasons that students went to these businesses, even if they kept religion in kind of the back of their mind as just a small thought about whether or not to go to that business. With all this, we think that it would be interesting to look more into religious spaces and how they include religion, and whether that is more of a business tactic to promote religion or to make a profit. As of right now, we don't know that. So.
All right, we have been Karma, and thank you for listening.